I am very glad to see you again, my diligent learners. Today's lesson in the English language is about something important. English is not a set of separate pieces, grammar, reading, listening, but a complete picture. To learn it well, every part must be trained and respected. 2 years had passed since the last time the three friends had met. Their names were Alex, Boris, and Chris. They had studied together at school, laughed at the same jokes, and promised to stay in touch, but life became busy and they drifted apart. Then, one day, Alex sent a message. "Friends, let us meet again. But we have a mission. We will speak only English." The other two agreed immediately. Each of them had spent the last 2 years trying to learn the English language, but in very different ways. They chose a small cafe in the city centre. It was a quiet place, with soft music and the smell of coffee in the air. Alex arrived first. He wore glasses now and carried a thick grammar book everywhere. When Boris entered, Alex stood up and said very carefully, "Good afternoon. I am extremely pleased to observe your arrival." Boris blinked. Hi. You sound very serious." "I am speaking correctly. I have studied grammar extensively. My sentences are always structurally accurate." "Okay," said Boris slowly. "That's nice." Then Chris came in, holding a novel in English. He waved and smiled. "Hello, my friends. It is delightful to encounter you again in this establishment."
Boris laughed. "Why do you both sound like old dictionaries?" Chris shrugged. "I read many books. Old books. Very old books." They sat down. A waiter approached them and asked something quickly in English. Alex froze. "Excuse me," he said after a pause. "Could you please repeat your utterance in a slower and more articulated manner?" The waiter repeated, but still quickly. Alex looked confused. "I apologize. I am unable to comprehend auditory information efficiently." Boris smiled. "Oh, I got this." He turned to the waiter and answered fluently, though not perfectly. "Yes, yes, we want 3 coffee, and cake, big cake, chocolate." The waiter nodded and left. Chris leaned forward. "What did he say?" Boris shrugged. "Something about coffee sizes, I think." Alex frowned. "You said 3 coffee. That is grammatically incorrect. The proper form is 3 cups of coffee." Boris waved his hand. "Grammar is not important. Communication is important. He understood me." Chris added, "Yes, but I did not understand either of you. I can read English very well, but when people speak, it is like fast rain." Alex nodded seriously. "Yes, listening comprehension is indeed a complex skill." Boris looked at Chris. "Okay, read something for us. You are the reading expert." Chris opened his book and began reading fluently. The gentleman proceeded towards the establishment with considerable haste, his demeanor reflecting both urgency and determination. Alex smiled. "Excellent pronunciation of individual words. However, your intonation lacks natural rhythm." Boris scratched his head. "I understood maybe 10%. Chris closed his book. "I also do not fully understand everything I read, but I can read fast." The coffee arrived. The waiter asked, "Anything else?" Boris answered quickly, "No, thank you, we are good." The waiter left again. Alex sighed. "I did not understand a single word he said." Chris added, "I only recognized anything." Boris smiled proudly. "Well, I understood everything. Listening is the best way to learn the English language." Alex shook his head.
No, grammar is fundamental. Without grammar, one cannot construct meaningful sentences. Chris raised a finger. Reading builds vocabulary and understanding of structure. They all paused. Then Boris said, "Let's test ourselves." "An excellent proposal," Alex replied. "Okay," Boris continued. "I will say something. You repeat." He spoke quickly. "Yesterday I went to the market and bought some apples because they were very cheap." Alex looked confused. "I regret to inform you that I did not capture the auditory sequence." Chris said slowly, "I heard yesterday and apples. That is all." Boris laughed. "See? Listening is important." "Now my turn," Alex said. "Please construct a grammatically correct sentence using the past perfect continuous tense." Boris stared at him. "What is that?" Chris smiled nervously. "I have seen such structures in books, but I do not remember how to form them." Alex proudly said, "For example, I had been studying English for 2 years before I met you today." Boris blinked. "That sounds complicated." Chris nodded. "Yes, very complicated." "Now my turn," Chris said. "Read this sentence." He showed them a page from his book. Alex squinted. "The font is excessively small." Boris tried. "I read slow, very slow." Chris laughed. "I read fast, but sometimes I do not understand the meaning." They looked at each other and suddenly started laughing. For a moment, the cafe was filled with their voices. After the laughter, Alex said quietly, "Perhaps we all made mistakes." Boris nodded. "Yes, I ignored grammar." Chris added, "And I ignored listening." Alex sighed, "And I neglected reading and listening in favor of grammar." They sat in silence for a moment. Then Boris said, "So, what do we do now?" Chris smiled. "We help each other." Alex adjusted his glasses. "A collaborative learning strategy. That is logical." Boris raised his coffee cup. "To teamwork." They clinked their cups. From that day on, they met every week. Alex taught grammar, but also practiced listening with Boris. Boris helped them understand spoken English, but also learned grammar rules. Chris shared books and improved their reading, but also practiced speaking and listening. Their English was not perfect, but it became better, more balanced, more alive. One evening, after several months, they sat in the same cafe again. The waiter came and spoke quickly. This time, Alex understood. 3 cups of coffee, please, and a chocolate cake." The waiter smiled. Boris added, "And maybe 2 forks. Not 2 fork, I remember now." Chris laughed. "And we would also like some water, please." The waiter nodded and left. They looked at each other with satisfaction. Alex said, "Our progress is evident." Boris added, "Yes, now I understand more and speak better." Chris smiled. "And I finally understand what I read and what I hear." They laughed again, and this time their laughter sounded natural in any language. I am very glad for today's lesson, my diligent learners. You have seen that to learn the English language well, grammar, reading and listening must work together as one complete picture. I hope you enjoyed this lesson and have taken another step forward. Return to it again after some time because repetition helps learners truly learn and remember.